Hello, I'm Tony Kowaleski. Today on Arizona Journal, we're going to talk about what it takes to immigrate to America in the 90s. And we'll also find out about a very special housing development right here in Phoenix. We'll have that and more next. Stay with us. Congress is continuing to discuss limiting and cutting off many of the government services legal and illegal immigrants receive. How will these cost-cutting measures affect new arrivals to this country? And just how hard is it to come to the United States in the 90s? Here to talk about these issues facing immigrants to America are Luis Ibarra, President and CEO of Friendly House, and Nic Suriel, an attorney with Friendly House, and also joining us, Ben Johnson, Director of Services with the Immigration Outreach Center. Gentlemen, welcome. An interesting issue. A country that's basically founded on immigration is now facing issues about immigration that I think are going to affect us not only now, but in the coming years. Let's first talk about the issue. How have things changed?
It's always been difficult for people to get information about how they would qualify for immigration services. It seems that limited resources to be able to give that type of information to the general public, people that would qualify. Now, it seems like not only are we dealing with limited resources to get the information out, we're also having to deal with issues of limited, quote, criteria to qualify for immigration. Now it's very difficult for families and individuals to immigrate to this country. I mean, there's still opportunities, but the law is not as lenient, quote, as it once was.
It's really become a political issue, not only here in the Valley, but we've heard about California. It seems like it's almost becoming politically correct to battle immigration. Do the three of you see it that way? Ben?
I think it seems almost politically necessary at this point. I think you've found everybody who's on the bandwagon. I mean, it's not a new trend. We've gone through it in the past. Historically, the trends against immigration have risen and fallen for long times. Back in the gold rush stage, we talked about that earlier. So yeah, I think we're now at a point where we've identified problems, and now we need to identify the root of those problems. And I think that everybody's jumping on that bandwagon, right or wrong.
Nic, you immigrated to this country from the Dominican Republic, and I guess one of the questions that I hear, what is it that's attracting people to this country, and has it changed over the years?
I don't think it has. Basically, my scenario is very similar to many immigrants. My father was a successful businessman in the Dominican Republic, and he wanted something more for his children. He wanted education, he wanted opportunities, he wanted freedom, basically. And most people that I talk to, you know, are not the atypical scenario that is presented nowadays. These masses, what we should be fearing. You talk to most employers like I do, and they tell me, hey, this is my best employee right here, and I'm trying to help this person. And so it's a matter of realizing that we're not under siege. This is all a bunch of fear. It's
not an attack, is what you're saying.
You bet. And is it by coincidence that this is an election year? Is it by coincidence that Pat Buchanan chose to disenfranchise a whole section that has no voting rights? It's very convenient, you know. There isn't this emergency, you know, where we have to call out the guard. This is all a fantasy, really. I mean, immigrants have always added to this country, and I'm proud to say that from my family, when I came here, I was 9 years old. My sister's a doctor. I'm an attorney. I have a sister who's an engineer, and I have a sister who's an economist. So, you know, people who come here, they come with ambition. They come with a dream to work hard, get ahead. This idea that people come here to mooch off the government is absolutely ludicrous. It's a myth, and it needs to be corrected.
The changes from year to year, decade to decade, Is it much different now than it was in the 20s and the 30s? You talked about the freedom word, and I'll let you get back to it. The number one issue, the number one advantage that this country offers compared to others, are you saying it's the freedom?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is the freedom that's guaranteed by the First Amendment of this country. Freedom of speech, religion, freedom of expression. Now, some would argue, now, let me ask you this. When we had the Mariel boat lift back in the 80s, where we had all these Cubans coming, at the same time we had a repressive regime in Haiti. And we were welcoming the Cubans because they were coming from communism with open arms. And the Haitians, who were being slaughtered in their streets, we were turning them away, saying these were economic refugees. Well, you know, the thing that was motivating people to leave Haiti was the fact that they were getting killed. Now, the fact that Haiti is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere is another factor. But don't look at people who are being persecuted and say, "Oh, you're just fleeing because of economic reasons." That misses the point.
It's too simple, is what you're saying.
That's right.
Luis, here in the Valley, the main issues as far as immigration, we're not far from the Mexican border. We've had trips from federal government talking about immigration, tightening things at the border. The issues here in the Phoenix Valley.
They're myriad, Tony. I think that your show is not long enough to deal with all of them, but I think that if I can just get share with the audience a sense of maybe some of the panic that people have, and I've heard it, and I think that it's directed to Mexicans. And unfortunately, when you look at who's immigrating, and really what's going on, where we're talking about, well, let's limit the number of undocumented children in our schools. Well, take a look at that. Who's going to be targeted? Is it other immigrants, or is it only Mexican children? Only Mexican
Are you saying
families.
it's racially motivated?
Yes, of course it is. I think when I'll give you an example. When Prop 187 hit in California, and people were jumping on it, the economic problems of California were blamed on, quote, the undocumented worker. All of a sudden, everything that's been going on with California was blamed on this population. Well, it seemed like everybody wanted to be a INS worker, whether you were at a store, at a school, no matter what it might. The police, they stop somebody, they want to ask for documentation of your residency. And we had citizens that were Mexican Americans that would go into facilities to use services, and right away they had to prove. So how can you tell? How could somebody think that I can tell that this person is here undocumented? How do you know that?
Ben, I can tell.
It's the perfect answer. The truth of the matter is that illegal immigration, whether we can argue till the end of the day whether it's a problem or it's not a problem, but identifying illegal immigration is something we've missed completely. Most of the illegal immigrants that are in this country today did not crawl over any fence in Mexico. They came into this country on an airplane with a visa, and they overstayed their visa. So identifying Mexico as the place to build the wall it's a misconception. It just creates an easy target. That's all it does. It's not a fact.
When you talk about the target, you talked about the perception there, and we've seen the news coverage. I've been part of the news coverage where you see at night people coming underneath the fence at the border between America and Mexico. You see the Border Patrol down there. And I guess it creates a visual image of illegal immigration, where you talk about people coming to this country and overstaying their visas. Well,
how can you tell?
You can't pick
What are we
people
gonna
out.
do?
The pictures aren't
Well,
there.
picture at the airport and show people, and then say, you stop them and say, "Are you here for a visa?" Yes. Well, You can't tell.
So the images that are portrayed on the nightly news are impacting the legal decisions that we're seeing.
They're
Let me
making legislation that's missing the mark. It truly is.
Let me ground that with an example. There was an excellent series at the Arizona Republic that the last piece was this past Sunday, where they showed these men that walked 50, 60 miles to get to do some agricultural work, and a couple of those men were eligible for H-2A visas. Well, I'm not sure which visa exactly, but the fact was that they didn't have the $185 processing fee These people, see, when we talk about illegal and legal, you have to remember that you could have a student here who one day is a legal immigrant to this country or a non-immigrant to this country, and the next day they go out of status, and the next day they're an H-1B or something else, or, you know, so it misses the mark to be talking about illegal, you know, because, you know, like we're saying, these pictures that we see, these guys crawling under the fence, well, they're crawling under the fence because they don't have the money up front. They're going to go work and get the money so they can come back. Also, what Luis said is very important, and that is that you have this impact where U.S. citizens, by gosh, are impacted by the fear, you know. I was stopped on the highway by Border Patrol. I was going to law school at U of A, and he stopped me, and I said, yes, can I help you? And he realized his error as soon as I spoke to him. And, you know, I asked him, I said, well...
Because you weren't speaking in any kind of dialect.
Right, because I didn't say, ¿Qué quieres tú? You know, I spoke to him in English. And so he immediately realized that, oops.
Offended?
Was I offended?
Were you offended?
Well, I was amused, really, because the guy was absolutely flustered, you know. He was like, oops. And I said, you know, I showed him my U of A law student credentials, and you know, and I said, what basis did you stop me on? You know, what probable cause did you have? You know, so I mean, where's the Constitution in all this? You know, so
well, this happens regularly. I mean, I think every Latino that was born in this country, in crossing the border, will share with you things that you would say, Tony, no, that doesn't happen. That will never happen.
And there are other minority groups that will also talk about being pulled over and harassed by police based simply on the color of their skin and the likelihood that there may be a problem or that there is some connection.
Right. I was at the border, and the border patrolman asked me when we were crossing, and I was crossing over with some farm workers, and very quickly. And he says, where were you born? And I said, no. He said, what citizen are you? I said, U.S. He says, how did you become one? I mean, if you were to respond to that question and you would understand the language, then right away you would say, okay, fine. I said, how did I become one? I said, probably the same way you did. I was born in the United States. Well, he yanked me out of the car. He reached in and said, get out of the car. And right away, he wanted to accuse me that I was high on drugs. We went over to get a haircut, and we had breakfast. We had machaca and eggs, and then we were going back. I mean, it wasn't like we spent a lot of time there. But I mean, those are minor.
Just the basis of what we're talking about here, and that's immigration, what it takes to come to this country, and what people are doing to maybe put roadblocks to prevent that. We're gonna talk more about moving to America when we return. Stay with us.
When you can't do it all, do what you can. A message from the Credit Union Foundation and your hometown credit union.